Hello, my name is Gil Penalosa, and this is Cities for Everyone, the webinar where every other Tuesday I invite fascinating people to share their experience, their knowledge, so that all of us can become better, passionate advocates on creating cities that are equitable, sustainable, and fun. Originally, I'm from Bogota, Colombia, and 20 years ago in Toronto, I created 880 cities. And I've been fortunate to have worked in over 350 cities, and I love parks everywhere. I've been to parks in every one of those cities where I've been working. And this one is a world-class park. We have Shannon Baker, who's the Director of Parks and Public Spaces at Waterfront Toronto, and she's going to present on Biidaasige Park, which opened just a few weeks ago, its first phase, and it's amazing, amazing. So much for that everyone can learn from this. Shannon, thank you very, very much for having accepted the invitation. Everyone is eager to learn about you and about this wonderful park.
Thank you. Thanks very much for inviting me, Gil. And thanks to everybody. It's amazing to see people from around the world joining. A great opportunity to share some of the work that we're doing here on the waterfront. And thanks for your support. So, so everybody knows where we are. We're in Toronto, kind of in the most southern section of Ontario, the province of Ontario, in the center of Canada. And Waterfront Toronto acknowledges that the land that we're undertaking our revitalization is part of the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. So as Gil said, Waterfront Toronto was formally created in 2001, and we continue to do work within the designated Waterfront Toronto, designated waterfront area, which you see in the blue here. So we work right in downtown Toronto, along the waterfront area. That's where most of our work is coordinated. And this morning, I'm going to be focusing on Biidaasige Park, which was part of the larger Portlands flood protection project that we are just in the final stages of wrapping up. So before we dive into the park itself, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the Portlands project and how the park is framed within that, which is really the naturalization of the Don River, the mouth of the Don River, and the flood protection work, which all sorts of new phases of development and urbanization are jumping off from at this point in time. So the Portlands was a 7-year, $1.4 billion landscape infrastructure project that's renaturalizing the mouth of the Don River right in downtown Toronto and creating a new river valley through the Portlands area. So 850 acres of man-made waterfront land is going to be transformed as part of this project and is now transformed. Just to kind of ground you in history, this area of the waterfront in Toronto, which is on Lake Ontario, one of the Great Lakes, was really transformed in the early 1800s. So at that point in time, city politicians and business leaders decided that they wanted to transform the river, to straighten it, to channelize it. We had quite a different view of nature in the city in that time period, and so they wanted to create a navigable channel that would facilitate shipping in the area. What resulted really is a lot of industrial use. This is an air photo from the 70s in Toronto. So if you're familiar at all with the city, you'll know you can recognize the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardiner Expressway that comes down into this area. And this air photo shows a lot of the historical infilling, the heavy industry like crude oil and petroleum refining, explosives and ammunitions manufacturing, metal treatment fabrication, concrete and cement manufacturing. So this area was really heavily industrialized and heavily kind of abused since the early 1900s. And part of the result of all of that lake filling was that this area was left prone to flooding. So right now, about 290 hectares or 750 acres of the area are prone to flooding in a regional flood event. So we refer to the Hurricane Hazel event here, which was a large storm that came through in the 50s and resulted in a lot of property damage and loss of life. And so if that type of storm were to occur here, this is the area that would be flooded in the blue that you can see here. And once we're finished with this work, we will have lifted this whole area up out of the floodplain. And this work builds on work that was done in Corktown Common, another project that was led by Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates. You can see the orange kind of backwards hockey stick there. That's the flood protection landform for the Corktown Common area, which protects most of downtown Toronto from flooding in a similar flood event. And so all of this work, as I said, is flood protecting this area, but it's also resulting in an incredible amount of habitat being created and a new river valley system being constructed as well. And this ecological habitat is really what is the underpinning or the foundation of Biidaasige Park. So we used a lot of bioengineering techniques to construct the project. Again, really rooting the project in nature, no pun intended. We have some root wads here. An example of some of the bioengineering techniques that we use to build the river valley system. The landscape architects, Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates, also used a lot of natural precedents. So they went out and looked at river systems in the area that were draining into the Great Lakes, and that's what they based their design work on as well. So very, very much taking inspiration from nature in order to build this incredible river valley system, which is the heart of Biidaasige Park now. We have moved enough earth in this project to fill, with a local reference, but to fill our Rogers Centre, which is where the Toronto Blue Jays play, so a very large stadium, 1.4 million cubic meters of earth. So a lot of heavy work to pull out some of that fill that was put in the beginning. And again, here's a shot of some of those crib walls and root wads being installed in order to construct the river valley. And what we're left with is a kilometer-long river, which is just an amazing, incredible touchstone for all of us within this system, and the underpinning of Biidaasige Park. Biidaasige Park means the light that shines upon us. It's also an Anishinaabe word, and that name was given to the park through an Indigenous naming circle that the City of Toronto convened. So that's an important reference as well. And I'll talk a little bit as we get towards the end of the presentation about some of the work that we've done with the Indigenous community in the park, which has been ongoing throughout the whole process. So a lot of work to figure out what kind of programming can go into this river valley system and all of the different park spaces or rooms. Some of you may have seen this article that was recently in The Guardian, which was fairly shocking, predicting that nature connectedness will continue to decline unless there are far-reaching policy and societal changes that are made. Nature connectedness is now actually an accepted root cause of the environmental crisis. People are losing this connection to nature, and so they're losing their touchstones. And as we all know, if you don't have a relationship and a connection to something, you're very unlikely to take care of it. And so that work to connect people to nature is one of the foundations of Biidaasige Park as well. It's a very unique piece of nature that's now been created right in the heart of downtown Toronto. And the river has been planted up and transformed for now a couple of years. Some of the plantings have been in. And so as you can see, when you're in the river valley system, you just feel like you're completely immersed in nature, and you're only a 15-minute walk to the CN Tower. So it's a pretty incredible space to be in. And we know that the importance of nearby nature is well understood. Currently, more than half of the world's population lives in cities, and we need to find ways to connect people to nature for the reasons that I just mentioned, as well as, you know, all of the other benefits that we get from being in nature, from the opportunities for physical health and physical activity to the environmental impacts like the reduction of air pollution and urban heat island impact as well. And of course, you know, in our efforts to renaturalize the mouth of the river, we've created habitat for so many other more than human beings throughout the river valley system. So we have the aquatic environments underwater, and the marsh system, so the fish and the amphibians, the turtles, the birds, all of the different insects and mammals that are moving into the space. So it's been incredible to see all of these things moving in as soon as habitat was ready. Really, they were in the river valley system. And MBVA, the designers looked at the river valley system and the parks on either side. So the whole park is now named Biidaasige Park, but we have a couple of different working names for the areas: River Park North and River Park South on either side of the river, and then a Promontory Park area to the west, which is closer to the inner harbor. So they thought a lot about, you know, these different aspects of what the park was going to do, from creating a citywide destination, really a regional and an international destination in some respects, as well as performing as a neighborhood park, providing spaces for active recreation and, of course, accessible nature as well. So the park itself is programmed with all of these different spaces. As you can see, you know, the River Valley Park system really is framed by the river on either side, and then the Promontory Park area has a much closer relationship with Lake Ontario itself and with the inner harbor. And so there are a number of different threads that run through the park design, from providing access to water and being able to touch the water. So looking at all of the different trail systems that run throughout the park, and then looking at those moments where we can bring people down to connect with the water. So there are canoe and kayak launch spaces, there are stone get downs, so that people can come through the trail system, through the river valley system, and get right down to the water's edge and actually touch the water. Because of course in Toronto we have a lot of beautiful lakefront in Toronto, but much of it is not all that accessible. You can't touch it because we have dock walls and railings, and so that opportunity to be able to interact directly with the water is something that's quite unique and a special part of Biidaasige Park as well. So we have two main paths of circulation through the park, and a lot of thought given also to the way that different users would move through the park. So we have a main hallway path that we refer to, which is the spine of the circulation. This park also provides important connections from a regional trail perspective. So we have the Don Valley Trail, which comes down from the north along the Don River. And then we also have the Martin Goodman Trail, which runs all the way along the length of the waterfront in Toronto, and also connects out again regionally on the Waterfront Trail to other communities. And so these two trails actually meet here on site. The Don Valley Trail comes down the Don Roadway and then connects into the Martin Goodman Trail after it after it runs through the park. And those trails are grade separated from the other trails within the park through elevation changes and bridges, so that we minimize as much as possible the conflicts between those wheeled users that may be going faster and someone that's kind of meandering along on some of the lower order trails. We're also thinking a lot about connecting into the city and making this area as accessible as possible. We have limited parking on the site, and that was done very, very purposefully. There's no parking lot in the park itself, and we're working very hard on getting some higher order transit into this area as well. So in addition to that, we've got the cycling network and bike share and things like that to try and encourage people to come down in as many different ways as we can. And thinking about the park in its 4 seasons. So we do unfortunately get some pretty wicked winds off of the lake in the wintertime in this area. And so we've thought a lot about how to use these spaces all 4 seasons. Of course, in the summertime, it's not hard to encourage people to come down, but in the wintertime, when it's a little bit colder here, you have to think a lot about the ways that people will use the space. So thinking about how people can warm themselves with fire pits and, doing activities like cross-country skiing was something that was really, really important to the designers. So we're going to jump a little bit now into the details of the park. So we'll focus on the river section of the park and the new river first. So on either side of the river, there are 2 new pieces of park. We've added, when we opened this phase of Biidaasige Park in July, we opened about 60 hectares of parkland. So we're opening the largest park to be opened in the city of Toronto in a generation. So it's an incredible space with just an unbelievable amount of new natural space and open space that people will have access to. So in River Park North, which is along the north side of the river system, we have a very vibrant nature play area in this area. So we have opportunities for people to access the river along this length. We also have a number of different online wetlands. So in the bottom left, you can see one of those wetlands, which is connected to the river system and separated from it by carp gates. So we prevent invasive species that are in the river and in the lake from moving up into these wetlands, which protects the aquatic habitat, but the water can flow freely through those. So they're hydrologically connected. And all of the area in this zone of the park is really inspired by nature. So there's a cableway canyon with zip lines, some upside down trees that kids can climb on, and the Badlands scramble, which is kind of in that lower bowl that you can see here, which is modeled after the Cheltenham Badlands, which is a natural space on the Niagara Scarp just outside of Toronto. So the landscape architects took that landscape typology as inspiration in this zone. And then some very large play structures that are modeled after the creatures that will be in the area as well. So this is an example of one of the stone get downs that we have in the area that again gives people that opportunity to come down and connect with the river itself. And I took this photo on one of the first days that the park was open, and this gentleman just sat by the river valley by the water's edge for quite some time, just enjoying the view and the connection. And I think a really wonderful example of how the vegetation has just completely taken off in the area. Two of our creatures that we've put into the nature play area. So the reaching raccoon, which is an earthscape play piece, and also the giant snowy owl, which is from Denmark, from Copenhagen, Monstrum. These are two of the stars of the nature play area, and again, kind of trying to pull in those natural references or natural elements so that we're engaging kids with nature as much as we can here. And if you out the snowy owl's eye out across the park in the Badlands, you can see some of the rubberized play surfacing there. So we've got swings and again the zip lines and things. So lots of things for kids to do. We've got a beaver dam at the bottom of one of the sections of the Badlands, which is a climbing structure. And again, we have beavers in the river itself. So another great way of engaging kids in nature and what's going on in the river valley system. And the Badlands Scramble, again, a giant area that's it was all constructed with colored shotcrete. So it's all concrete and there's sand at the bottom for kids to play with. And then all of the water play pieces are from Richter and they're amazing. They're all activated. It's not like a splash pad that runs all the time. It's activated only by people power. So you really have to work to get the water flowing, but kids seem to absolutely love the area. So they take their shoes off, they get right in there playing with things. And we've designed this area with spaces for kids of all ages and abilities. So it's been a giant success thus far. And then over on the west side, we've got Promontory Park, which is still under construction. So this is the next phase of Biidaasige Park that will be opening next year. We're working very hard to get that open. And there's also a space that you can see represented by the pink area, which is a future phase. That's destination play. That's not funded as part of the work that we're doing in this phase of the park, but hopefully will be funded in the future. And again, is sort of a next level nature play area with lots of creatures and again, more opportunities for kids to be engaged with nature. So this is an axonometric view of this area, really kind of immersive and lots of winding pathways and stone scrambles for people to get up to the promontory, and the reward there is a fantastic view back to the City of Toronto skyline. We have an event lawn where there will be space for movie nights and concerts, and thousands of people from the neighborhood can gather there to watch a movie with the lake as a backdrop. And then Canoe Cove, which is an exciting space that we've got coming up with this next launch, where hopefully we'll have an outfitter there so people can rent canoes and kayaks and then get right out into the Canoe Cove that we've designed, which is kind of a more protected area where people can learn to canoe and kayak before they might, become a little bit more adventurous and head out on the river or head into the lake itself. This is a rendering of the movie night or event lawn in Promontory Park South. And then along the length of that frontage of Promontory Park, there'll be an esplanade there. Again, with lots of opportunities for people to engage with the lake. We also know that, as much as spending time in forests and the idea of forest therapy is something that's quite popular, there's also theories about blue spaces and having connection to water and how good that is for us and for our health as well. So that's an exciting piece that's coming next year. And I mentioned at the beginning that we have worked a lot with the Indigenous communities. So we are working on the traditional territories and the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations here. But we've worked with many different Indigenous communities, and it was very important to Waterfront Toronto that we worked with them from the beginning and that we worked in a deep and meaningful way to incorporate Indigenous ways of being and traditional knowledge into all aspects of the park. So we have a number of different features that are throughout the park, from number one, the Indigenous plant materials that are included in all of the plantings that we've done throughout the park. We have over 2 million perennials, 77,000 shrubs, and 5,000 trees that have been planted thus far. So an incredible amount of plant material that's gone into the river valley. And many of those are Indigenous species. We also have a fire holder, marker trees, a ceremonial shade structure as well that have been incorporated. So the first piece is these marker trees, which I'm very excited because we're going to begin with the bending of one of these marker trees tomorrow, actually on site. So this is an aspect that's incorporating the work of Nikibi Dawadina Gigwag, or NDG. It's an Indigenous youth group that's been learning, and so they've been able to, through this initiative, kind of reclaim some of that knowledge that's been lost. This practice of bending trees is something that has kind of been lost. And so through this work, they've been able to reconnect with elders and do some research and try to figure out, a methodology for this. So this is going to be happening on site. And again, an ongoing piece of stewardship that they'll be involved in for years to come on the site. Also some teaching signifiers as well, sturgeon stones. So the sturgeon is an important fish in this area, particularly for Indigenous communities. And so the sturgeon is represented in these pebble mosaics, as well as these large sculptures that Solomon King has done, and they've been delivered to site now. So they're pretty incredible, and we're very happy to see those now on site. He's also working on a fire holder. So this is a space again for ceremony and a place of gathering for all people, but particularly for Indigenous peoples as well. And then the ceremonial shade structure is designed by Tawau architects, and it is based on the teachings of the 13 moons. So each facet of this kind of drum or quill box form represents one of the moons in the 13 moons of the seasons of the year. And so that's coming together now as well. That'll be open hopefully by the end of this year in River Park North. And we have all of these totem as well that are sculptures that were carved actually by a German sculptor working in partnership with an Indigenous elder here, Shelley Charles from the Nokomis Collective, that did a lot of work with us on all of these aspects within the park. So again, they're a play structure. They're for kids to be able to interact with, but also something that provides a really important, not only a touchstone to nature, but also an important opportunity for learning about Indigenous communities in the area as well. And finally, we also used an Indigenous firm, Envision, to do all of this signage for the park. So not only the Indigenous cultural heritage, but all the cultural heritage, the industrial heritage, the natural heritage, story about how we designed the river. That's all being told by an Indigenous group. And another piece that we're really excited about in Biidaasige Park is the Lassonde Art Trail. So that's a $25 million donation that's been received by the City of Toronto, and will develop both temporary and permanent art throughout the River Valley system and in the park. They've announced one piece so far, which is a permanent piece by Kent Monkman, an Indigenous artist, which we're very excited about. And we also have trajet installed, which you can see just kind of in the bottom of your screen there. Also an Indigenous art piece that's within the River Valley at this point in time. And so as we have finished up this this work, as we're working towards the end of the Portland's flood protection project, we're now moving on to the rest of the island. And Okwemen another Anishinaabe word, which means the place of the black cherries. So this is the name that's been given to the island itself, where traditionally black cherries would have grown. And is part of, again, this vision for now that we've flood protected this island and we've built all of these incredible park spaces, we're moving on to building out the neighborhood that will be here. So that work is just getting underway, but more homes for everyone, and what an incredible space to be able to call home right within this river valley system, immersed in nature. So we're very excited about that as well. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much again for coming and listening, and I'm really looking forward to having some discussion with you now. So my call to action is it's about connecting to nature, and thinking about how you can connect to nature more meaningfully or more deeply, and how you can encourage others to do that, and maybe how you can create opportunities for that, or how you can advocate for that in your own community, because it's so important as we're facing this climate catastrophe. As people are becoming more and more disconnected from nature, they're not taking care of it as much as they should. Nature, we are nature. Nature is our home. It's the key to our survival. So,
Shannon, thank you. Thank you. What an amazing presentation. Everyone, I'm sure that we learned so much. Almost 100% native plants. Every single one was planted one by one. Thousands and thousands and thousands, plus all of the play equipment. It looks so new, so innovative, so creative, right in the heart of the city. Who would have thought? A former industrial area. Part of it was also infill on the lake. Part of it is connecting these two amazing, the Waterfront trails with the Don Valley Trail. And so much to learn. I hope that everybody who watches this video, please share it. Share it with friends, with decision makers, with advocates, with the media, because everyone can learn from this about an amazing park and the benefit of parks in our mental, physical, and social health. Thanks.